Nikon's new releases, Lightroom tips, reflectors, and is large format making a comeback? Hey everyone, welcome to Keep Shooting Monday number 116. My name is Greg Cazillo from Cazillo.com. So last week at CES, the big announcement from there was all the new toys and new stuff coming from Nikon. The biggest one of which was all the rumors that were out there for their flagship D5 model. It has an all-new 20.8 megapixel full-frame sensor, a brand new 153-point AF system with 99 cross-type sensors, which that means that they're more accurate. The other cool thing about those, it's actually a wider pattern. So if you would imagine, you can look at my show notes. If you would imagine that this is your picture, they actually kind of go across. They kind of leave out the top and the bottom. They kind of go across in the viewfinder, which is good. I think that's going to be a step in the right direction and make a big difference, make it a lot easier to focus on that stuff that's out on the sides. 12 frames per second and up to 200 frames in RAW, and that's in the highest quality RAW, so it has a huge buffer. Compact flash or XQD memory cards, 4K video, native ISO 100 to 102,000, and then there's also a high 5 setting that goes all the way up to 3.2 million ISO, and that is an M for million. That is a lot of low light sensitivity. It is a Nikon sensor. It is not a Sony sensor from what I have read, and I cannot wait to get my hands on one of these to play with them, although it might be a little while because I got to work on the budget. But yeah, this thing is going to be a beast. I can't wait. Definitely ready for an upgrade myself. The other camera that they released was the D500. D500 has a 20.9 megapixel DX sensor, so it'll take your smaller lens, your DX lenses, ISO 100 to 51,200, the same 153-point AF system from the D5, up to 10 frames per second for the same 200 image burst or buffer. So that's a lot of shooting. 200 images buffer. That is a huge amount of images. I couldn't imagine needing a burst of that many images. Just crazy, and not that I shoot like that anyway. 4K video, and it also adds a tilting touchscreen. So touch, not just tilting, but tilting and touch screen. All very interesting things, all things that kind of up the game and make Canon and the other manufacturers, Sony, all kind of rethink, and more competition, as I always say, is good. Something else that's out there is the new SB5000 speedlight. Someone actually commented probably a month and a half ago, something like that, somewhere, and they said, well, why doesn't Nikon have a new, an RF trigger, a radio frequency trigger, rather than just the line of sight strobe triggers, the flash triggers? And so finally it's come out. The new SB5000 works with radio frequency, and it's basically replacing the 910, the SB910 that's out there. The D5 and D500 cameras both have that RF capability built in, which is great. That means you don't need to have another strobe on top of your camera in order to fire this one remotely. That's awesome. And adds a new cooling system to prevent overheating, and has an MSRP of $599, slightly cheaper, as I noticed on Amazon. I think it was $589, $580, something like that. Check out the links here for all of those, and you can head over and pre-purchase, or if you're watching this video down the road, you might be purchasing. So check them out. The other thing I thought I would talk a little bit about are Lightroom tips today. I'm still working with that really big Lightroom catalog, as you guys may have noticed, and I'm trying to stick it out. I'm hoping that there's going to be some updates and some things that are going to go on that's going to be worth my while, and so some speed upgrades, all that good stuff. So I'm holding out. I'm holding out hope that there's going to be a big increase in speed, so that I won't have to um, deal with the slowness of the catalog, or at least not as much. So anyway, I thought I would some things that I've noticed with this huge catalog. Number one is there seem to be a bunch of missing images, and I think this came from some problems before, where I was doing the automatic RAW file conversion from RAW to DNG in order to save space on my drives. And so I think that is where this issue came in. What I ended up doing, I don't know if it didn't re-import those files properly, but there was one specific year, maybe it crashed, I don't know. Basically what happened is that I would select a bunch of NEF files, and then go up to the menu, convert them to DNG, and then would automatically remove all those old files. Well, it would remove the files from the file system, it would create the DNGs, but for some reason it did not re-add the DNGs into the database and remove the NEF files from the database. All not a big deal. Files are still there, no major problems. I'll show you here what it looks like. So basically what I ended up doing is do a little research, figure out how this works. If you go up to library and then find all missing photos, you can see all your missing photos out of your catalog, which is great, because if for some reason you deleted the wrong one, or check for your backup consistency, all those kinds of things, it's a really nice thing to do, maybe on a monthly basis, especially if you have a large archive. That'd be a good thing to be able to tell you, basically the condition of your archive, the condition of your backups, all that stuff. So, and, that's definitely a good thing. So, I didn't have any major issues. It was just a bunch of like JPEG files, stuff like that I probably exported and then deleted. So overall, mine was in really good shape. I didn't have any major problems, except for this issue with the NEF to DNG conversion, and so that was the problem with that. A couple other things that I did is I created a collection with catalog issues. So inside of that, so far, I've created a couple of smart catalog or smart collections that will, number one, check for odd copyright info, whether it's set as unknown or public domain. And actually, it's interesting because the public domain images came up with some images from Epson on some scanner photos, which is the way it should be. That means they put them into the public domain, which is just fine. And but obviously, for my own work, I don't want them to be in the public domain. I want them to be marked as copywritten. Not that you can't remove any of that metadata down the road, but at least I'm putting them out there correctly in the first place. And from my archive, they're done correctly. So that makes it nice and easy to be able to tell, okay, I have a bunch of images that I need to work on the metadata and fix that stuff. So that's number one. You can do a quick little search for certain keywords. If, say, you change your company name, something like that, you can do searches and maybe older cameras, older files. Just look at those smart options, those smart collection options. Might be able to get you some really, really cool ideas on ways to keep your catalog super clean. You can obviously search for keywords and all those things. But the main thing is that I'm really talking about right now, it's a slower time of the year. Better to start looking at those catalog issues now rather than try and find those issues and really have to do it when it's crunch time, when you really need it. So it's better to be working on it right now. A couple other things that I noticed. You can, when I imported a folder for this year, I noticed that it did not come up with its parent folder. And you'll notice in my folder selection that I have each year added there, from 2002 to 2006 are all in one, which I may end up splitting up, all the way down to now 2016. Well, originally when I imported today's show photos, it did not show the parent folder. And so what I did is I right-click on that folder, and then you do Show Parent Folder, and then you have that nice structure there. I like having those divided by year. Hopefully you guys are working on your archives to make sure that they're a little bit cleaner, working nicer, makes it easier for you to find stuff, all that good stuff. So that's a neat little trick that's there. What else? I now cannot live without another keyboard shortcut in Lightroom. So last week I actually showed those sheets. Hold on. I showed these sheets that have all of these keyboard shortcuts on them, okay? And I was going through and I'm like, what is full screen mode? What's that? And it actually talks that the F key, you hit the F key and it brings up full screen mode. And so this has been huge for me. It is saving me so much time. Because what happens is, if you're in the grid view, what I used to do is double click on that image on the thumbnail to make the image bigger. Now, instead of doing that, well, then let me back up. I would double click to make the image bigger, then I'll have to hit the G key to come back and make the image smaller, show the grid again. Now, instead of doing that, I hit the F key once. It makes the image full screen almost immediately. It's much faster than switching in and out of grid view. And then hit the F key again, and it closes it and goes back to grid. It's also hiding the sidebars, making the image full screen, vertical or horizontal. Awesome feature. Never knew it was there. Love this. It's the F key when you're from the library view. Great. Love it, love it, love it. One other thing that I found this week, Lightroom actually published this tip, is if you want to update your local adjustments in multiple sliders. We all know that you can, when you're doing the adjustment brush or the gradient tool, any of those kinds of extra adjustments inside of the develop module. What I didn't realize is, and I guess probably because I don't edit them a whole lot, I use them as my an individual slider as my adjustment. But if you have multiple sliders in there and you get them looking really good, you get a really good mix, you can actually hit the little triangle in the top right-hand corner. When you hit that triangle, all those adjustments are going to close. Then it's just going to give you a single slider that you'll be able to adjust the amount for all of those sliders at once, which is really, really nice. Great thing that I did not know was in there. I thought I would bring it to your attention. Thought it would be a great tip for everybody to be able to use. So let's get into a couple of Cazillion questions and get out of here. Beach Water Girl asks, thank you. Can I use this when I do newborn photography if I'm just using natural light? Beach Water Girl was referring to this video that I had done a couple years ago about reflectors. Absolutely, you can use reflectors for natural light photography, although there may be some drawbacks and some issues. First, if you're doing it with newborn photography or any smaller subjects, you're probably going to want a smaller reflector. The reflector, actually, I'll show you a photo of it. It's right there. It's actually reflecting a little bit light back into my face. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. It's not going to be a ton of light when you're using natural light. When you're doing it with strobe, you're going to have a lot more of that light bouncing back into the face, bouncing back into the subject. But with natural light, it's nowhere near as much. That means you're probably going to need to get it closer. So since you're going to need to get it closer, you're probably going to want to use a smaller reflector. So you instead of buying a bunch of smaller reflectors, it might be less expensive to get, say, just some smaller foam core, cut it up into smaller pieces, 8 by 10, 10 by 10, 4 by 6, make them a bunch of different sizes, cut them down, make it a lot easier and simpler. You can just grab the one that you need, but still have a stack of them to move and shape light wherever you need them to be. Clamping stuff, all that good stuff. Tape them onto a clamp, whatever you need to do in order to kind of get them where you need to get them. You could also use an articulating arm or something like that to hold them. So there's all kinds of different ways in order to really get them that light where you need it to be. But do keep in mind, for the smaller the product, the smaller your reflectors are going to need to be, and your available light is going to be tougher to bounce, and you're going to need a smaller needs to be closer. One other thing you might think about is a lot of the reflectors have a white side. If you have a 5-in-1, you have the diffusion screen on the inside, then you have a black, you have a white, you have a silver, and a gold. The silver and the gold are going to be more reflective than the white will be, and obviously the black is for adding shadow, not for adding more light. And so if you use the silver or the gold, that's going to add even a little bit more light, which can make it better. The gold one is up to you whether you actually want to add that additional gold tone, but if you want to stay away from adding or subtracting from tones inside of that by using the gold, stick with the silver, and that can push a little bit more light back into the scene, although it's going to be a little bit more specular. It's going to be a different quality of light, but it'll still do a good job and maybe get you over the edge to where you really needed it to be. So experiment. That's the best thing you can do. Play around. Go to the store, buy a toy doll, basically. Play around with that. See how you do. Work with the available light, in a window or wherever in your studio, in your home where you do the shooting, and get used to it, practice it, and then once time comes, you'll be ready to go. You'll know how to set it up and make it happen a lot quicker. So try those things out. Alan Brock asks, is large format making a comeback? I've seen a lot of photographers out there shooting large format again, and I've actually been thinking that I might just get mine out too. In fact, I kind of have to now because I backed this Kickstarter project, which allows me to develop my own 4x5 negatives here in the studio. So I backed this, so now I'm going to be getting a really cool holder for, I think it was $50 or something like that I had backed. So I need to now step up and do it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I want to see if there's some ways to get maybe make a little bit of equipment off of eBay, see what quality there is out there. I have the same Toyo 4x5 camera that I had from college. It's just sitting around here. I haven't touched it in years. It's been in the case and hasn't been done anything with it, basically. So yeah, I need to do something with it. I'm hoping to do some work with it and some interesting projects, and just to remember how to do it, remember to play with it. I do remember back in the day, the one thing that one of the teachers we had, his name was Ed Marco. He was a 4x5 teacher, and there's a certain other YouTube personality out there that never could quite grasp the whole large format 4x5 thing, and I had to teach him how to do that. I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, one of the things Ed Marco would say is that when you're measuring the amount of light, the farther away your bellows are, the more extended your bellows are, the less light is going to make it onto the film. And so you need to calculate that. And so one of the ways that we would do that, instead of taking a ruler, would be to measure this distance from here to here. And that's how I found out from there to there is 11 inches. That's a lot of inches. Anyway, I think that is it for today's show. Always want to hear Cazillion questions. Please share the show with all of your friends. Any questions, comments, love to hear them. Thanks, guys. Keep shooting.